Hey, stop right there. Before you even think about building another crosscut sled, seriously ask yourself, is it truly working for you, or are you working for it? And what if I told you that the standard Microjig 360 sled, which is already a pretty cool piece of gear, could be transformed into an absolute workshop beast with a few upgraded custom mods? And what if I also mentioned that my journey to build this ultimate sled involved, well, let's just say a few moments that were more comedy gold than woodworking gold? Anyway, we're not going for average here. We're going for maxed out. Now, don't get me wrong. The basic Microjig 360 sled is a solid starting point. It's designed for quick, accurate crosscuts. And that zero play miter bar is a smart bit of engineering. But solid isn't quite spectacular, is it? I found myself thinking, this is good, but what if it were great? What if adjustments didn't mean fiddling with tiny little knobs, especially when my hands are caked in sawdust or I'm wearing gloves, right? What if hitting common angles was instant, without squinting using a protractor or an angle or something like that? And what if the whole setup was so smooth it practically put itself together? And that's the mission for today, taking the good bones of the Microjig 360 and building a version that's not just customized, but totally optimized for speed, convenience, let's be honest, a little bit of showing off. We're taking practical upgrades that fix those tiny little workshop frustrations, turning them into, that's so much better moments. So if you're ready to step up your crosscut game and maybe have a few laughs with me, stick around.
All right, let's talk basics. For any good sled, you need good material. I'm using Baltic birch for this because it's stable and tough, and I just happen to have enough laying around. Trust me, you don't want your precision sled doing the warp dance down the line. The plans usually suggest a base around 16 by 20 inches, and you'll want to save a strip from the same sheet for your fence. Using the same sheet means the thickness is consistent, which is way more important than you might think for getting everything to line up just right. Before we even dream about fancy mods, let's get the basics prepped.
Now Microjig says to cut it to a 22 by 20 board, and then you're going to cut off about 6 inches extra to make the fence. But I didn't have a full sheet to mess with, so I couldn't do a 22 by 20. So that's why I cut the base first, the 16 by 20, and now I'm going to make 2 pieces for the fence because I'm just using scrap that I have here. So we're going to do the little thinner piece here because this is less than 2 inches. This is going to be 1.25 inches. So I just need to set my fence up. And I was going to play with it and see if I wanted it maybe wider or thinner, and I did. But honestly, they've got it pretty much down to a science. This, these measurements they got here are pretty good for me because I wanted a small table saw sled. I had that big one I was using before, but I prefer a smaller one. And we're not going for like the ultimate sled or anything like you see all the time. I just want something that's quick and easy just to do my cross cuts and then maybe some angled cuts. So let me get this set up here. Now we need a 2.5. And now I've got to make this one 20 because, like I said, I've got just a leftover scrap I had, so it's going to have to be cut down to exact measurements here. And I don't have a good crosscut sled yet. That's why we're building this. So I'll just have to use my standard DeWalt for now, because it's kind of rubbing on there. Maybe I'll use that end. Yeah, it looks better. So now you've got your base, and you can rotate it in any direction you want. And this is going to be the fence here, like that, so to speak. And once we get our slots in, we can rotate it. Anyways, let's move on.
I've cut my base to size, and we're also going to need to think about those dovetail grooves for the awesome match fit hardware. I like to lay these out in a grid, usually with about 4-inch spacing because it gives you tons of flexibility for clamping things down later. You'll need a 14-degree dovetail router bit to match the match fit system. Any regular bit works, but I opted for their bit because they said it was better and it's round over and blah blah blah. And honestly, it's pretty nice. I'll go ahead and demonstrate for you later. Alright, we've got our grid lines for the dovetail grooves marked on the base.
So when I was deciding to make this thing, I went ahead and just bought the kit. I figured it'd make things easier. It came with the dovetail bit, hardware, clamps, this, and this is really what I was kind of curious about. Like, is it going to be worth it? Can I just measure it? I'll tell you what, you can, of course, but it's definitely made things a whole lot easier, and I don't regret it at all. You can save yourself a little bit of money and, buy everything separate, but this has made things worth it for me just to kind of speed this up. And like I said, I can already tell that I'm going to use this system quite often, so to have this preset, it's good. All right, blade is set.
Now before we let that dovetail bit loose, let's talk about making its job a whole lot easier and our results a whole lot cleaner. We're going to cut relief grooves, or channels, right down the center where each dovetail slot will be. Think of it as pre-gaming for your router. Why bother? Well, a dovetail bit, especially routing into dense plywood, is removing a fair bit of material. Asking it to hog out the entire dovetail profile in one go is tough on the bit, tough on your router, and can lead to burning out. So we head over to the table saw. I'll set my blade height to just a little less than the final depth of the dovetail groove. You don't want this relief cut to be visible later. Then I align the fence so the blade cuts right down the middle of my marked lines. A quick pass for each groove, and voila! We've removed the bulk of the waste. My first time doing dovetail grooves, I might have skipped this step to save time. Let's just say my router sled sounded like it was gargling angry bees, and the cut quality was, well, let's call it rustic. Lesson learned. These relief cuts are a small step that makes a huge difference for a smoother routing experience and cleaner results. With our relief grooves cut, it's time to actually create those magical match fit dovetail tracks on the base. This is where that dovetail router earns its keep. Pop that into your router, and now the crucial part, setting the depth. This has to be spot on for the match fit hardware to slide in smoothly. Too shallow and they won't hold right. Too deep and they'll be sloppy. Microjig provides specs, so measure carefully. I like to use the setup gauge that came with the kit, but you can use a block or a digital caliper for this. I'll leave a link down below for you to check out the kit and see if it's right for you. Next, you need a straight edge guide for your router. Clamp it down parallel to your layout lines, making sure to account for your router's base offset to the bit. Then it's showtime. A steady hand, consistent speed, and let the router do the work. And yes, this is the part that can feel a bit like that woodworking Groundhog Day, especially on a big base with lots of grooves. So, good tunes are a non-negotiable workshop accessory here. Also, dust collection is your best friend. Dovetail grooves make a surprisingly large amount of fluffy dust. Or just go outside like me.
With our router bit set, let's take care of the fence before we switch tools. Remember that strip of plywood we saved when cutting the base? That's going to be our fence. Routing all those dovetail grooves can feel a bit like you're in a woodworking version of Groundhog Day. And now another dovetail groove and another. My advice, put on some good tunes and double check your router bit depth. On one of my earlier passes for the base grooves, my router bit slipped just a little bit deeper. It wasn't a total disaster, but just enough to make one groove a little more roomy than the others. The match fit hardware still held well, but it was a good reminder. Check, double check, and then check again, especially during repetitive tasks when your mind might drift off to, what's for dinner? For the fence adjustment, you'll drill through holes and route slots. This is what lets the fence pivot for angled cuts. Once your fence pieces are prepped with dovetail grooves routed and adjustment slots cut, you clamp them together and attach them to the base. The typical microjig plans show how to make a sturdy fence, often by laminating a couple of pieces together, and importantly, routing the match fit dovetail grooves into it as well. This lets you attach all sorts of hold downs, stops, and other accessories right to your fence. Once the fence is dry, take a moment to round over any sharp corners and break all the edges on the sled. This makes it much nicer to handle. Getting all these bits together, the perfectly aligned miter bar, the versatile base, the adjustable fence, is where you start to see your maxed out sled really take shape. It's no longer just a pile of wood, it's a precision tool in the making. Zero Play miter bar is designed for top-down install, which is a huge improvement from those other ones where you have to pull it out and fiddle with those little screws on the side, right? So that's a huge improvement. Makes things easier, especially once you get installed. you can just put it in your track, mess with these holes right on top, and adjust it, and everything's gonna be great. But I can make it a little bit easier for you. Check this out.
Let's get to the heart of any sled, the miter bar. A really key first step is making the center of your miter slot on both ends of the base. Connect these marks with a perfectly straight line. This is your guide star for mounting the miter bar accurately. At least, that's what the instructions say. I'm going to share a little sneak peek of a shenanigan. My first try at making the miter slot center. I hate things like this because I feel like I can get close, but end up drilling way off. But I followed the instructions and marked my lines. This was terrible. It involved a tape measure that had clearly seen better days and a pencil that was more of a hopeful wish than actual graphite. The line looked more like a winding river than a precision guide. And let's just say measure twice, cut once rule got a bonus round of measure a third time, and maybe use a tape measure, buddy. So pro tip, use tools you trust, even for the simple stuff.
So then what you're gonna do is you're gonna square it up with your blade here. All right? Get you something. Make sure you can line up with your miter slot. Make sure it's nice and square with your blade and your miter slot, everything like that. And then just use your eyes, right? Then you're going to kind of look at it and see where's going to be the center of your miter slot. And so you mark that down, okay? You take your board, rotate it. Same thing, square it up with your blade, square it up with your miter slot there, something like that. And then same thing, just eyeball it. You got to get the best that you can, but kind of find the center of your miter slot and mark it. Where those two lines intersect is going to be your center. Start with the center one, because I followed the instructions. Look at this. I was going by their instructions, and I did the 1.25 inches, right? 1 3/4 I mean, sorry. Went up that way, and I did 1 3/4 up this way, and they don't line up. So I can't rotate it like they say you can. It wasn't straightening up. It was like this way would be flush with the zero clearance, and this way was like way over here, away from the blade. And I didn't like that. I wanted to have as close to the blade as possible, right? So you can see that I was doing that, and that's why I have all these different holes, because this is my practice board. I was just practicing with it. So I'm telling you guys, save yourself the trouble. You're going to want to start with that center hole. So, okay, so say you did that. All right, cut it through, line it up. Now you know where your center is going to be. So get yourself 1/4 inch. You're going to do a 1/4 inch through hole, all the way through the 1/4 inch. Then get yourself a 1/2 inch and just countersink that into there. All right, so let's say we did that. Cool. Now you're gonna screw this in. I'm gonna do this on camera too. So screw this in here. We're gonna do our center. Where's my screwdriver? Look at all this mess I got over here. There it is. All right. Screw in your center. Actually, I lied. Before you do that, I forgot to mention this part. Make sure it's still in there. Make sure you got your take the zero play. Put a couple nickels down, so it's not completely flat. Stick it in there. Make sure everything's nice and loose so it fits. So see, you can see this, look. If I push it closer, it's gonna make it tighter. If I pull it apart, it makes it looser and there's slop. So get it in there, make them nice and loose, and then just get it in there where it's nice and snug. Not too tight where it won't move, but nice and snug there. Then you're gonna wanna tighten that up. So that way, you know where it's gonna be. So I forgot to mention that first. Again, like I said, start with cutting your blade, get it in there, but then you're going to want to tighten these up. Sorry, I'm moving the camera really bad. But tighten those up. You know where your hole's at, because you drilled it through, right? So now, put that in there. I think I'm in there. Yep, okay. Make that nice and tight, because it's all squared up now, right? So then, take your board, flip it over. And it shouldn't have moved. Everything should still be square, right? Make sure you square it up. Then you can get a 1/8 drill bit. Make yourself a through hole through there. Drill yourself a little hole. Can't see on camera. Drill yourself a hole all the way through. Now you know that's where your center is for that. Then you can go up and do your other one as well. So when you flip it over, look at that. now I know where my other hole is going to be. So then just follow that up with the 1/4 inch and the 1/2 inch. So like I said, do that with a couple of scraps. Make sure everything fits good where you want it so you don't ruin your big piece. Because, well, I didn't ruin my big piece, but I ruined my scrap, right? So everything's nice and square, right? So then same thing. You got your middle, so you don't have to move anything. Same thing. Flip it over, do your 1/8 hole, do your hole there. Now you know where all your holes are. Or just rotate it in the directions you want. And I'm going to demonstrate and show you guys on my final piece. Also wanted to mention, since I did that, I was able to measure where the center would be, right? So if you get yourself another little square or something, you can mark your lines where that's going to be. That's how far away the blade is going to be. Now you can transfer that line all the way across. So now you know where your holes are going to be at. And you just need to measure, these are going to be 4 inches away from each other. So once you get your center, technically you could just measure 4 inches down, or you could do what I'm doing, or you can measure however you want to do, like I was showing you, drilling it through. So since I've done that, I've got this. That's what we're going to do. Mark it. All right. Just make me a nice little line here. And you rotate your board that way. Oh, wait. I need to rotate this way. Now I know that's where it's going to cross. So my blade is going to be right here. So when I put this in, I can run it through, my blade's going to go this way. And then when I rotate it, it's still going to be this way. Just like where I put it. Got my 1/8 attached. Going to find this. Should be pretty center. Use my block, that way I can line everything up. Looks good there. Oh my god, I'm drilling in reverse. What a freaking moron. There. Now I got my through hole. You can see. So now, I just gotta drill with the 1/4 inch. Actually, I'm gonna do my 1/2 inch first. Don't want to go in too deep. I should have put a depth stop on it, but I didn't. I'll do that next time. So we're gonna go right in the center of that. Alright. Alright, 1/4 inch. Shade there. Alright. Here we go. Arrow up. And so see, this way is a little long, right? When you go to put it on the table saw, this is almost hitting the blade before you get it in the track. And once you get in the track, it's fine, but I don't know how often I'm going to be using it that way. I know I'll definitely be using it this way more often. So for now, I'm not going to make all those holes in my sled. I might do that later. But again, like I said, I was showing you the way you can do it, whichever way you want it. So for me, I'm going this way with it. So yeah, let's square this up. Get your 1/8, and make sure that you are not drilling in reverse like a dummy, like me. Duh. See, much better when you are going the right way. So now I can move that. And I can switch to 1/4 inch, or like I said, 1/2 inch. And I don't want it going that deep, as deep as I had it, so let's see. I don't know. Do I feel like getting my depth stops out? Yeah, I guess I should. Okay, got my collar on. I decided I wasn't gonna mess with that. And of course, if you have a countersink bit, that would just be easier, but I don't, so that's what we're doing here. Alright, so now rotate this where I want it, and holes line up perfectly, exactly like I said they would. And it's getting late for me. We got pictures to go take, so might just have to finish the rest later. All right, so the next thing we need to do is do our 3/4 holes in here for the adjustment screws, right? And lucky for us, when you get the Microjig miter bar set up, they give you plans with different things. But the main coolest thing is you get this little diagram, and this is the exact size of the miter bar. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is line it up here. Actually, instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it. Cut it out, that way I can just put it right on here. It'll show me the measurements, right? Put that over there. Now I can use this as a template. Put that over here. And so actually what I did is I went ahead and folded it. That way I can kind of line these up and find the center of my holes. And I'm just going to drill right through it. Yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it where I want it and tape it up. And there we have it. There's our holes. Precision is vital in woodworking, but so is efficiency. If you're constantly cutting common angles like 45 degrees for miters, or maybe you're doing like 22.5 for octagons, or maybe you want to get that perfect 90, you don't want to be messing with an angle or a protractor or anything. That's where our next custom mod comes in, preset angle dowels. All right, so I went ahead and made sure I got this nice and squared up with the blade here, right? And I did a couple test pieces. So this is where I want this. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna mark where I want those dowel pins, kind of something like this, and then I can cross it, and we're gonna drill these holes. And these little shelf pins are about 5 millimeters. So I went ahead and got a 3/16 drill bit, and we're gonna line it up on our lines here.
The idea is brilliantly simple. We're going to install small dowels right into the base of our most frequently used angles. Think of it as a speed dial for your table saw sled. Need a 45-degree cut? Swing the fence until it sits against the 45-degree dowel. Boom. Done. Repeatable, accurate, and incredibly fast. To do this, you'll first need to precisely mark your angle positions. This is where you do use your accurate angle finding tools. Just once. Drill a shallow hole at each mark. You don't want the dowel going all the way through, just deep enough for a positive stop. Make sure the dowel is sticking out a tiny bit so you get that nice tactile feedback when the fence hits it. Now snapping the fence to those preset angles is incredibly satisfying. It's a click, lock, and you're ready to cut. This mod alone has saved me so much setup time, and the accuracy is dead on every single time. Total game changer.
And now I know what you're thinking. Well, I don't always want these in here, and I don't want to have to worry about losing them and stuff. Bonus tip, just get yourself another hole right here. And then one on the other end where it's away from your blade. But don't make your tables don't fall. Make it a little bit bigger. Now, when you're done with it, you got somewhere to store it. It'll stay on your sled with you when you're not using them. Boom. Easy peasy, look at that. And it's not in the way in any way. All right, now test it, you say. All right, got a factory 90 right here, right? Got my pins, got this in there. Let's get my angle. Boom. See if I can get this on camera for you. I don't know how good the camera is on there, but look. Can you see that? I mean, that's, if I can get my finger flush on it, I don't even know. It's probably not going to show up on the camera good enough. I can't get a good angle on it. But I'm telling you guys, let me see. All right, so yeah. Now I can't hold it there, but see, flush right there, flush right there, flush right there. Anyway, if you don't believe me, that's okay. Just trust me. Or try it for yourself, because it doesn't matter if mine's right or wrong. You gotta do it too. Okay, let's talk about one of my biggest workshop pet peeves. Tiny, fiddly knobs in hardware. You know the ones. They're impossible to grip if your hands are dusty, a nightmare with gloves on, and generally, just a pain. For our maxed out Microjig 360 sled, we're kicking them to the curb. Welcome to the era of Knobzilla. I'm replacing all the standard adjustment hardware I can with oversized, ergonomic knobs. Think big, grippy, and easy to turn, even if you've got the dexterity of a sleepy badger. There are community resources and even diagrams out there for extended knob designs if you want to go fully custom. I went for some beefy ones that feel great. The beauty of this mod is how simple it is and the massive impact it has on usability. Adjusting the fence? Easy. Locking something down? A satisfying twist. It just makes the whole process more comfortable and, honestly, faster. Now for a bit of fun. When I was hunting these down, I might have gotten a tad carried away. The first set I built were gigantic, but the image I had in my head was inspired by my water hose knob because it's comfortable and easy to turn. The problem is, they looked hilariously large on the sled. My wife walked into the shop, took one look, and asked if I was planning on steering a ship with it. We'll call that Knobzilla Mark I, a Titanic edition. I've since downsized to Knobzilla Mark II, the still impressively large but accurately practical edition. The point is, find a size that works for you, but don't be shy about going bigger than standard. Your fingers will thank you. The simple upgrade changes the whole feel of the sled, making every adjustment a small joy instead of a minor pain. It's these little ergonomic wins that add up to a truly maxed out experience. And I know it's not perfect yet, but I just couldn't wait to use my new sled. So all you need to do is get yourself these T-nuts and center it up as best as you can. And you can mark your center. There's your center marked right there. Now you definitely want your holes to go in straight for this, or else your dowel will be crooked, and I don't trust myself to handle this small wood freehand. I usually have some help handling wooden rods, if you know what I mean. Alright, anyway, all seriousness, I tried setting up some wood and clamping it all together, but that didn't work as well as I had hoped. So I pulled out this Miles Craft drill press attachment, which I've had my eye on for a while anyway, so it's about time I use it. I did attach it to my sled as a temporary assembly table, and let me tell you, I was very impressed. I guess I know my next project I'll be building soon. So, got your T-nut, your screw, and your washer. And it's all, I think it's a 1032 screw with a 1032 washer or something like that. This one needs to go through, so I'll take that off, but I'm gonna need something under that. Take this off there. Get your screw in your washer, put it through your handle head, attach your body to the dovetail thing, right? So screw it in here.
What did the frog say?
I don't know, what did the frog say, Madeline? There we go. And then put that one in there. And where's my screwdriver at? And then tighten that up. Boom. Look at that. And now I can use this. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue it in first. Yeah, put some glue in there. And then screw it in. That's much easier now. Now, before we finish up, a few last thoughts and a quick wins to make your own Microjig 360 sled build even better. First, material really matters. Good quality, stable plywood like Baltic birch is your best friend. It resists warping and gives you a solid, reliable base and fence. Second, when you're routing those dovetail grooves, take your time and use a sharp dovetail bit. Consistent depth and clean cuts are key for the match fit hardware for it to work best. Third, don't be afraid to take the plans for your own needs. The Microjig system is made to be customizable. My mods are just a starting point. Think about what would make your workflow smoother. And remember, that miter bar installation, the zero place system is great, but good prep like pre-drilling for initial positioning can make it pretty much foolproof. Also, embrace the fails. Seriously, not every cut can be perfect. Not every idea will pan out the first time. Trust me, if you've been watching my channel, you know. Woodworking is a journey, not a destination of flawless perfection from day one. The important thing to learn is to adapt and keep building. Maybe keep a bottle of wood glue handy for those little character building moments. So there you have it. The Microjig 360 sled completely maxed out with custom mods that make it a real joy to use, at least for me. I'm super happy with how this turned out, and I hope it's inspired you to look at your own jigs and think about how can you kick them up a notch? How can you upgrade them, make them customizable, and they're gonna make your workflow awesome. Now it's your turn. I wanna hear from you. What custom mods have you made to your Crosscut sleds? Are there any game-changing features you just can't live without? Or more importantly, what hilarious fails have you had in your workshop that taught you something useful? We all know I have. Drop your stories, ideas, questions, any of that down below in the comments. I read every single one, and I'd love to chat about it. And hey, if you've enjoyed this adventure through custom mods, pro tips, and a few woodworking mishaps, do me a favor and hit that like button. It really helps the channel out. And if you want to see more projects like this, more custom builds, maybe a few more well-intentioned blunders, make sure you go ahead and subscribe and ring that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. All right, guys, time to go out there, customize your workshop, embrace the occasional hiccup, and build something awesome. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Happy woodworking.